This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Thursday, February 25th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Gunmen killed 36 people in two attacks in northern Nigeria on Wednesday, a day after insurgents fired rocket-propelled grenades, according to officials and residents. The series of attacks by armed bandits occurred over the past 48 hours, with 18 people killed, each in villages of Kaduna and Katsina states, and several others injured. The assailants burnt down houses, displacing the villagers. The latest attack comes less than a month after President Muhammadu Buhari replaced his long-standing military chiefs amid worsening violence in the northeastern towns. The COVID-19 vaccine rollout to date has been far from equitable. The vast majority of doses have gone to high-income countries. Now, a World Health Organization program aims to change that, delivering its first shots on Wednesday in Ghana. VOA Steve Baragona has more.
Packed in India Tuesday night, 600,000 doses of the AstraZeneca Oxford University COVID-19 vaccine. COVAX, the international program for vaccine equity, delivered the shots to Ghana Wednesday morning. They're the first in its pledge to deliver 2 billion doses worldwide this year to countries regardless of income level. It's a historic moment, UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Fore said, adding that it's making good on a promise that people from less wealthy countries are not left behind. But it's more than that, says World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus.
This is not a matter of charity. It's a matter of epidemiology. Unless we end the pandemic everywhere, we will not end it anywhere.
Dangerous new variants of the virus can arise anywhere the disease is spreading. A variant first found in South Africa is already weakening the vaccines. The G7 group of high-income countries this month committed $4.3 billion for COVID vaccines, tests, and treatments. President Joe Biden has joined the program, reversing his predecessor's policy.
The United States is making a $2 billion pledge to COVAX, with the promise of an additional $2 billion to urge others to step up as well.
But the program remains $23 billion short.
Alrighty, there you go.
And COVAX is competing with other countries for scarce vaccine supplies, says International Rescue Committee Health Unit Chief Mesfin Tessema.
The goal is noble, but it is actually standing, in the long line and at the back of the line. And that means that even though they have the money now, by the time they receive the doses, it will be much, much later.
And some wealthier countries are cutting the line, making deals with manufacturers that undermine COVAX, the WHO's Tedros says.
Even if we have the funds, we can only deliver vaccines to poorer countries if high-income countries cooperate in respecting the deals COVAX has done and the new deals it's doing.
The first doses are arriving in low- and middle-income countries, but experts say it will be months before they catch up to wealthier nations. Steve Baragona, VOA News.
Sinopharm's COVID-19 vaccine was administered throughout health centers in Senegal's capital on Wednesday, a day after the Minister of Health launched the campaign to reassure citizens it was safe. Senegal received 200,000 doses of the vaccine on February 18th for frontline health staff, the elderly, and people with underlying conditions like diabetes and heart problems and chronic illnesses. At a health center in a densely populated neighborhood of Dakar, large crowds of people came to receive the Sinopharm doses, despite rumors that it was unsafe or could lead to sterility. As lower middle-income country, Senegal is also eligible for around 1.3 million doses for free in the first wave of disbursement from the WHO's COVAX program. but shipments are not expected to start until late February, and most will arrive in March, according to WHO. In southern Africa, the public health sector of Zimbabwe has carried out a vaccination program against COVID-19, with China-donated Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccines for frontline workers, including medical workers and staff of airports and borders, since Monday. A shipment of Sinopharm vaccine doses arrived in Zimbabwe on February 15 and have already been distributed to all the 10 provinces across the country. At a hospital in Harare, capital of the country, medical workers were receiving the vaccine. Thandiwe Mnaiwa, one of the medical workers, said that as she works on the front line of fighting against the epidemic, she can help more patients as long as she has the opportunity to get vaccinated. She also wants her vaccination to influence more people to get vaccinated as soon as possible. Residents at an assisted living facility in the U.S. are getting a taste of life before the coronavirus pandemic, thanks to a hug tent. Residents can, while wearing plastic sleeves, embrace and hold hands with their families. More from VOA's Mariama Diallo.
87-year-old Jeannie Sheldon suffers from Alzheimer's, a form of dementia. A resident of Juniper Village in Denver, Colorado, she now gets to hug her son, something she hasn't done in months.
It's been a long time.
Her son, Tom, says he hasn't seen her in person since last October.
She feels the pain of separation, of not being around family. She was very family-oriented all her life, and so it's just tough to watch that.
Tom says he's grateful for the people who set up the tent at the assisted living facility, even if contact is made through super thick plastic sheeting.
That was wonderful to be able to put my arms around her and feel her, and for her to put her arms around me. Even though she has memory issues, they still live in the moment, and they can enjoy every single moment.
With over 28 million confirmed coronavirus cases, the U.S. has been one of the most affected countries in the world. For the elderly in particular, little hugs can make a world of difference, says Juniper Village's Anna Hostetter.
The tent is disinfected between uses, and they can finally give their loved one that hug or handhold that they haven't had in almost a year now.
Moments that can be heartbreaking at times, but they also warm your heart.
It's your daughter,
says volunteer coordinator Amanda Meyer.
It's really hard to describe. It's hard to describe having lived with these people my whole life and worked with these people and these families. And the thought of them not having any physical connection for 8-10 months is really kind of just heartbreaking to me. And so just the personal reward for me has been the joy that transfers from them when I see how happy that they are.
Since the pandemic hit, similar tents have popped up around the United States and in countries like Britain and Brazil, where some people call them cuddle curtains. In Brazil, Elizabeth Lisboa visited her father in an elderly care facility last summer. In an emotional reunion, the pair hugged and kissed.
Our lives were taken away. We used to come here nearly every day to see Dad.
Another family in the same facility sang and danced together after months of not seeing each other. Dirce Villas Boas, who is 93, said she couldn't be happier after spending time with her daughter.
The bond of a mother hugging her daughter. Her heart was swollen, very swollen. It is good. I'm good. And she is calmer.
A therapist at the nursing home said despite having that plastic barrier, there is touch, which is extremely valid as it kills the longing that one has had after such a long time apart. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
Sudan launched a scheme on Wednesday to alleviate the impact of a severe economic crisis by paying out monthly cash allowances of $5 that are eventually meant to reach 80% of the population. The first $400 million phase of the program is financed by the World Bank and other donors. Disbursement of funds had been, however, delayed ahead of a steep currency devaluation announced early on Sunday. The family support project, named Thamarat or Fruits, is initially being rolled out in 4 of Sudan's 18 states. 6 years ago, Nigerian-born Damilare Kujembola and Timi Adeyeba teamed up to co-found Amplify Africa in the U.S. state of California. Its objective was to showcase Africa's diaspora talent and create representation for African talent and Africa's business interests abroad. I spoke to Damilare, an entrepreneur and entertainment lawyer, and began by asking him about the progress the company has made.
Over the period of 6 years, we've put together events. We created a ton of content around sort of creating community and representing those interests of people, whether they are here in the diaspora or whether they're on the continent, and bridging the gap between those two places. What kind of events do you organize to showcase the Africans here in the diaspora and what happens back in the continent? One of them is sort of a dance party called Afro-Lituation. Just again, to give more people the chance to learn more about the culture and the music. Another brand that we've built is called the Afro Ball. And, we've been lucky to, partner with the U.S. Congress to give out certificates of recognition to people, within the African diaspora who are excelling in their fields. And then finally, we do one of the largest events during the BET weekend. It's a concert series called Made in Africa. And we sort of create opportunities for African talent, African music artists to, showcase their talent on sort of a global stage. And so we've had, the biggest artists from, Burna Boy to Davido all just come perform and showcase, the talent that we have as a people. We actually bring people of African descent, whether they are, African American or Afro-Caribbean, to sort of network and build community with people of Africa or African immigrants. And so what are you working on right now, Dami? We just launched this competition. It's a $5,000 competition for creatives. Just after the year that we've had with the coronavirus and with the protests and the Black Lives Matter, I put out a call to people, to creatives in general, to create content that unites us as a people, whether you are African American or you're African or Afro-Caribbean, because our goal is to constantly bridge the gap between those communities. And so pretty much we partnered with, the Shade Room, which is one of the biggest Black media platforms on social media, as well as, our friends at Chick-fil-A, to sort of give back to, the creative community and to sort of help create that narrative of unity within the global Black diaspora. How are you going to get that organized because of COVID-19 protocols? Is it going to be an online event? It's more or less like an initiative, an online competition, and we're just asking people to create and send us videos. People pretty much are supposed to use the hashtag Amplify Africa and amplify the diaspora online, post it on their social media pages or their Facebook pages, and the top 10 entries will be picked and we'll post them on our platform, whether it's on our website or our social media platforms. And by the end of March, we hope to announce the winner. So our more details are available on our website, amplifyafrica.org, for people who are looking to sort of get into and cash in or cash out. And we know that there's such a vibrant, brilliant group of young people in Africa who are talented. How are you planning to showcase their talent? We're focusing more on the media side of our company. And so, we have a website, we have a social media platform, we have a newsletter. So that we've been growing an audience for African content in general. And so we've been leveraging the platforms that we have to sort of create more opportunities for representation for these people, whether they are music artists or, whether they are, actors, actresses, or who have movies, but people generally within the entertainment space. We're still currently creating opportunities for businesses on the continent that are looking to expand, to the U.S. We currently are working with, Star Beer, which is like a big liquor brand in Nigeria, alcoholic beverage in Nigeria. We're helping them expand their operations into the U.S. How would you describe the scope and reach of the company? We gathered interest from, people within the United States who are interested in connecting back with the continent. But we also have a good following of people in the United Kingdom, as well as on the continent as well. Notably Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. We're constantly building relationships. There are a lot of people who genuinely care about the continent and genuinely care about our mission as a company to amplify Africa. And one of those people is Congresswoman Karen Bass.
How does Africa itself come together?
We try to encourage more people to trace their steps back to the continent, to learn more about the other people and other cultures, and see the beauty in all of us coming together as Africans, and see the beauty in Pan-Africanism, because the only way that we can move forward is us working together as one global Black race.
Damilare Kujembola is the co-founder of Amplify Africa. Coming up, 2 South African medics seek to make history by crossing the icy waters between northern Canada and Alaska by rowboat. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Africa 54. President Joe Biden signed an executive order on Wednesday for a government review of global supply chains and potential U.S. vulnerabilities in key industries, including computer chips, electric vehicle batteries, pharmaceutical and critical minerals used in electronics. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has more.
Before ramping up production following the early months of the pandemic, the U.S. had a national shortage of personal protective equipment such as masks and gloves. Now, American automakers struggle to find semiconductor chips to keep assembly lines moving. These are among the issues President Joe Biden wants to address through an executive order for a 100-day government review of global supply chains and potential U.S. vulnerabilities in key industries, including electric vehicle batteries, semiconductors, critical minerals used in electronics, and pharmaceuticals.
These reviews will identify policy recommendations to fortify our supply chains at every step, and critically to start implementing those recommendations right away.
Biden's order will also direct year-long reviews in the defense sector, public health, transportation, energy, information technology, and food production. The review can help U.S. companies invest strategically and become more agile during a crisis.
The key is, particularly with dramatic change or rapid change, you've got to do a good job of forecasting, and you got to think holistically. You got to look at the entire sort of life cycle of the operation.
While the executive order does not mention any country, the U.S. is particularly dependent on China in many critical industries and for rare earth minerals needed to make everything from consumer electronics to military equipment.
That is not a good spot to be in. Having said that, I think to just say we're just focused on China is really short-sighted, and I think that this policy really looks at a really broad picture in terms of U.S. production, manufacture, economy. So it's not just China.
The Trump administration also pushed to shore up supply chains, mostly through tax cuts, to encourage American firms to manufacture domestically and import tariffs. Biden's strategy is different, says Samira Fazil, Deputy Director of the White House National Economic Council.
This work is not going to be about America going it alone. The answer to these weaknesses is not always to ramp up domestic production.
These little chips here for automobiles.
On Wednesday, Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris also met with lawmakers at the White House in order to garner bipartisan support to ensure supply chain resiliency. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
Solar energy is a natural fit for sun-drenched southern Africa, its proponents say. The only problem, not enough panels to meet soaring demand. VOA's Anita Powell looks at one company spinning sunshine into energy.
Sunshine is a constant in South Africa. This, its fans say, could help the country decrease its dependence on polluting forms of energy, especially coal. Solar panel technician Bongani Moyo hails from South Africa's Mpumalanga province. The name in isiZulu means place of the rising sun. Solar power, he says, just makes sense to him.
It's a very good job because at most of times it makes me understand that we really need solar at South Africa. Then solar really helps a lot because there's a lot of load shedding in our country and we need solar.
Energy officials in the country have long advocated a mix of electricity sources, including coal, hydropower, nuclear, wind, and solar power. Solix South Africa is one of the many upstarts that has found success installing solar panels on homes and businesses. The small company employs several dozen people, and managing director Ryan Snoek-Henkemans says he would love to hire more if only he could import more panels from China to meet growing demand.
There is a huge uptake in South Africa in the solar industry, in employment. It's especially in the commercial industry that, as I mentioned, our grid is quite unstable. The likes of Solar Africa, Solic, we employ quite a few employees. There's not even enough solar panels in South Africa for the amount of installs we want to install in this country at the present moment.
He's seen a huge increase in demand, from 1,000 installation requests a month last year to about 25,000 a month now. Most customers, he said, see a 50% reduction in their electric bills. Solar sales manager J.D. Kalitz originally came from the wind turbine sector. He says with South Africa's unstable power grid, solar-powered homes and factories can actually sell energy back to the grid.
I do believe that renewables are the future. I do believe that, especially in South Africa, with the unemployment rate being the way it is, it actually creates a lot of green-collar jobs, which actually benefits a lot of guys, especially the underprivileged, especially if they go into renewables and they go into the industry.
Moyo is one such story. He started on the job in 2016 with no experience.
The energy that we use from the sun is very important and it's very good and it's healthy, in fact. So that's why I decided to do this job, because I learn a lot about energy and I go around and it's nice for me for helping people there. And I enjoy this job and I love the job.
The 33-year-old says he wants to grow old doing this job because, he says, the sun will still rise tomorrow. Anita Paul, VOA News, Johannesburg.
Malian linguists and Braille experts have translated the most widely spoken African language in Mali, Bambara, to Braille for the country's blind. Bambara is spoken and understood by about 15 million Malians, even more than the colonial language French, making it an important step for blind people. Annie Reisenberg profiles a teacher of the new Braille translation in this report from Bamako.
Musa Keita has been at the Malian Union of the Blind, UMAV, since his childhood, first as a student and now as a teacher. He is one of the 6 instructors who will soon teach Braille in Bambara, the country's most widely spoken language. Before now, students had only been taught Braille in Mali's colonial language, French.
When I think of this project that thought not just of the visually handicapped, but moreover that thought of Africans, particularly of Malians, to write Braille in their own language, to try and adapt Braille to Bambara, which isn't even the official language, really it's a feeling of pride and joy for us.
If you can write and read in Bambara, then you can learn how to write it in French.
Abdoulaye Diallo is a blind physical therapist and a Braille specialist. He writes prescriptions and patient information on paper with a tool called a slate and stylus. The Braille is then translated into written French by clinic staff. Diallo says teaching Braille in Bambara is a breakthrough for students and blind adults who never had the chance to go to school.
If I'm an adult, illiterate, and I'm going to learn Bambara, but I can see, I learn Bambara, and I can do whatever I want. If I'm an adult, but I'm blind, and I don't know Bambara, I'm in the margins. So it's the Bambara which will save, which will give autonomy to all these people who were in the margins.
Isiaka Ballo, a linguist expert at the University of Bamako, was contacted in 2019 by a nonprofit group called Sight Savers to spearhead the project to adapt Braille to Bambara. Bambara has more letters than the French alphabet and more intonation, so new letters had to be created, but only within the 6 points available in the Braille cell. Ballo says blind students in Mali will now have more access to education.
If they can learn these subjects in their language, I think that will only strengthen the knowledge and mastery of science. the knowledge and mastery of literature, the knowledge about the world around us.
In many schools, instruction is done in the local language rather than French. Ballo says the next step is to translate Mali's other national languages, like Fulani and Songhoy, into Braille. Annie Reisenberg for VOA News, Bamako.
2 South African medics are swapping their medical gear for oars as they train for a risky 4,000-kilometer journey by rowboat through the Arctic Northwest Passage. If the 14-member team finishes the trip across the north of Canada to Alaska, they will make history, as all attempts to row the icy waters have failed. Franco Puglisi reports from Johannesburg.
There have been several attempts to cross the Northwest Passage by rowboat, but none have succeeded. A 14-member team, including 2 South African medics, are training to make history with their attempt planned for next year.
Nobody conquers a passage. The ocean allows you to pass, and there's a very important distinction there. We will be lucky to get through the Northwest Passage, to row from Pond Inlet, the top right-hand corner of Canada, to the top left-hand corner of Alaska, a place called Point Barrow.
In decades past, travel through the icy Arctic waters was only possible by large ships. Reduced summer ice will allow the team to row the passage, but the journey will still be a physical and mental challenge.
We're going to be out there in the elements by ourselves, essentially. And I think after a certain period of time of repetitive rowing on and off for, weeks on end, I'm pretty sure my mind might be the biggest challenge I'll have to overcome. So my fear is that encounter I'm going to have with myself.
Along the journey, the team will use scientific tools to gather data for climate change and wildlife studies.
We hope to be the first modern-day expedition through the Northwest Passage, and to highlight what's happening with the environment and the climate. This is the sort of expedition that wouldn't be possible 50 years ago.
Despite the history of failed attempts to row the passage, the team is hoping to finish the trip within 2 months before the winter ice returns.
There has been a previous team, I think it's 2013, that also tried to row the Northwest Passage. They were unsuccessful as the ice caught them. Hopefully the ice will stay back enough for us to finish and be the first then to row the Northwest Passage.
Meanwhile, the team will launch another expedition to help them prepare in June. They'll row from England's Newcastle to Orkney, a much smaller distance than the length of the Arctic Northwest Passage. Franco Puglisi for VOA News, Johannesburg.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, we thank you for watching.